Did you know you can life coach yourself even if you've never been life coaching before? Yes. Hey there, I'm Esther Rappaport, your host and a productivity coach, here to help you rewire your brain to be more efficient and effective. Today, we're discussing what life coaching is and how you could actually start life coaching yourself in any sort of situation that you will be in, especially relationships. Now, Michael and Sterling are certified life coaches that help men and women change their lives by changing their thoughts and their habits. And they've got 6 kids, and it has a massive effect on their lives. Now, I'm super excited to bring them on. But first, if there's anything in this episode that you like, don't forget to hit share and share it with someone else who you think could benefit from it. And that way you'll be helping us reach our goal of 1 million downloads by the end of 2025. Thank you so much, Michael and Sterling, for being here. I'm excited to be speaking with you. You want to start by telling us how you guys met?
Absolutely. I'll let you take the lead on that one.
Yeah. So we came to it a bit differently. I spent most of my 20s, and even before that, not really wanting to get married. I was not religious and I loved working and I didn't plan on having any kids. So part of our story is that I had this big kind of conversion experience when I was 24, and I ended up becoming Protestant. I was kind of raised with no religion from then. And so I became Protestant, and it was January of 2009. I've always been an avid goal setter, and I set the goal to meet my husband that year. I was like, all right, I'm just going to meet him this year. I'm ready. And it was really the first year that I had ever decided I had wanted to be married. And so I did a lot of things that year, things like swing dancing and cooking classes and church groups. And I just really put myself out there a lot. And it wasn't until maybe the late summer that I thought I would try online dating. And so I signed up for eHarmony, which is just they didn't have the swiping apps back then, right? It was just these website memberships. And so I signed up for eHarmony, and I was matched with Michael, who was Catholic. And at the time I was like, I would never marry someone who is Catholic. But he seemed very intelligent and faithful, and he loved dogs, which was a big part of my life. I was a dog trainer. And so, yeah, that's how we met. We met online.
It's worth noting that the only reason she agreed to meet with me in person was just to close out the match in eHarmony.
That's true.
And so it's kind of funny because I actually had been looking for quite some time at this point. I was a few years older. I had been looking for, probably 2 or 3 years at that point and hadn't found the right person. And so I think I was probably in a similar initial boat. I'm like, I'm not sure this one will work, but I guess we may as well meet.
Yeah. And we had 4 dates in 4 days. And this was October. And by January, we knew we were going to get married. And we were married the June after that, almost 8 months after we met. So it was pretty fast.
Wow. And how many years ago is this?
11.
12 years. Or
almost 12.
In June. Almost 12.
Coming up to 12.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. Now, what point did you start your coaching program?
She actually started first.
Yeah. So I have been a podcaster and an author for 6 or 7 years now. And I have helped women do goal setting and kind of self-help development things. But I didn't know what life coaching was until almost 2 years ago now. And somebody said, what about life coaching? And I had never heard that term before. And I had read tons of business books and psychology books, but I guess I just had somehow missed that whole universe of life coaching. And I just fell in love with it. So it was pretty fast. Like, I talked to a life coach, discovered what that was. I started listening to the Life Coach School podcast with Brooke Castillo. And I knew pretty quickly that I wanted to be a life coach, which must have felt like it came out of nowhere to you, Michael, but I just showed up one day and was like, oh my gosh, I want to do this. I want to make this huge investment and go learn how to be a life coach and do that. And then I said, and I think you should do the same thing. And so we ended up going through the school together. Whereas, had you met us 2 months before that, that wasn't on our radar at all, not even a little bit. And so it was very out of left field, but it was just so perfect for both of us because we both have always loved helping people and business. And
I have to interrupt just slightly here to put some context.
Yeah,
Sterling had oh gosh, so many businesses before this. And so from my perspective, my wife is incredibly entrepreneurial gifted. And she will come up and she'll be like, I see a business there. Let's build that business. And she'll do it. She'll be like, cool, here's a business. And that's just a gift that she has. And so at first I'm like, here's the newest one. Here's the newest business. And I have to agree with Sterling though. So she discovers this life coaching thing, right? And I'm like, here's the newest one. I'm watching like, oh, this one does look a little different. And so I think the bigger surprise to her was actually when she said, I think you should do one too, that I actually said yes. Because prior to that, the general discussion of her businesses, I'm like, that looks great, honey. You go do that business. And she does. And this one, I was like, okay, maybe I'll join you in this one because there is something a little bit different about this, especially in terms of how effective it is.
Yeah. At what point did you realize it was different? Like, because you signed up for like one, you're doing the training, or before that?
So I'm like the opposite in terms, I'm a super conservative kind of mindset in terms of like, I don't try anything until I've read all the paperwork about it. You know, I've got like all the research done. And then I'm like, okay, maybe I'll like stick a pinky toe in the water and see what's going on here. And I think as when you're a husband, you know, you obviously pay a great deal of attention to your spouse, and wives do too, but I'm just can only speak for the husband half here, of course. And as you go through the years and you kind of watch and you learn, okay, this is how this tends to go. That's how that tends to go. And this life coach thing came up and I'm like, whoa, this actually is changing things. Like the cycles, the regular patterns were broken. And that caught my eye. I'm big on like an engineering background, big on like the patterns. I'm like, whoa, something different's happening here. Because, you know, you try a lot of stuff. Every one of us gets out of our own family of origin broken badly. It's just the way it works. And we try all these different things. We read all the books, and you get little marginal improvements. And this was like a quantum leap improvement. It was like something totally different. And I was like, whoa, I got to figure out what's going on there. So I started doing what I do best, which is researching it, digging into it. And I was surprised. I was like, wow, there's something here. And so when she, a few months after that, said, do you want to do this too? I said, yeah. And so we actually went through the certification program together.
So how is like the official certification of the life coaching program different, Sterling, to like the work you're doing before, helping people setting their goals? And I'm not sure exactly what work you did before.
Yeah, it gave me just a different language. So previously, I describe it as a key. So it's like I was reading all of these things like Atomic Habits. Everybody loves James Clear's Atomic Habits or Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg, or I love Cal Newport's work, Deep Work. And so you read these books and you're like, oh, that's so great. I want to do it. But then why is it so hard for us to implement it? Particularly if you view yourself as an intelligent, hardworking person. Why is it so hard to actually do the things that we read? And what the life coach school teaches, which is really just a repackaging of cognitive behavioral therapy, but they teach that your thoughts create your results. And so they have this model where they show you that what you think creates a feeling in your body, which drives your actions or your inaction, and then it creates your result. And so she said, your thoughts create your results. And I had never heard it said like that before. And so for me, what it opened up was it showed me why I was doing the good things in my life and why I wasn't doing the things I thought I wanted to be doing. And I could slow down my thinking and find exactly the resistance, and I could change it. And it's true. I read lots of books and I always tell Michael, you have to read this book. It's amazing. But what he actually saw for the first time was my life changed, and I lost 70 pounds, and I was happier with the kids, and we were having different conversations. It was a very visible change in the way I was showing up. And it just felt like this one tool unlocked all the other knowledge that I had been storing up. I knew all of those tricks, but I didn't know how to get myself to do them. And so I think that's what life coaching did, is it just gave me a language for helping people get unstuck.
Yeah. So let's maybe this is a bit extreme. I don't know, but if let's say like all of us together, all our listeners are in the same room and you had to life coach us all together, what would you now tell us to really, something that we learned in a book, something that we heard on a podcast recently, and we want to go and apply it to life? How can we go and do that?
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds so simplistic, but Brooke and the whole program and all of it talks about how if you are willing to feel your feelings, you can do anything you want. And for those of us high achievers, we're like, ooh, I want to do anything that I want. I want to, make money or improve my marriage or lose weight. We all have these goals. But one of the reasons we don't achieve those goals is because we're so scared of our feelings. So let's just pick one that's pretty common for all of us, which might be posting on social media. And our brain has a deep fear of rejection. And we can understand that 10,000 years ago, if you experienced rejection and you were kicked out of the tribe, you'd die, right? So we have a deep, deep, deep fear of rejection. And so whether you're trying to build friendships or a business or not feel lonely, when you come up to the social media box, right? We stare at it and it feels overwhelming sometimes, like it's a black hole. And we're like, oh, it feels so scary. And we're so scared of posting something that would have a negative reaction. And so it's hard for us to be our true selves. We feel this need to filter because we think if I said what I really thought, I might be rejected. So when we say that the superpower, like I think the meta skill is feeling your feelings, I will take my clients. I won't do it because we're on a podcast, but if I did have a room full of people, I would work with them for 3 minutes and I would get them to feel rejection on purpose. We would just sit there.
So if you're listening to this, put this on pause and feel rejection.
Just feel it. Yeah. And you can conjure any feeling by just thinking about either a past rejection or one you're worried about. Maybe somebody broke your heart when you were younger, or maybe you're trying to go for a promotion. And in marriage, we reject each other all the time, right? So even once you get married, there's still these like mini rejections within that. And you can feel rejection in your body. And I ask people to describe it. Where is it in your body? Does it have a color? Is it moving? Is it heavy or light? And it's amazing. If you've never done this before, you will find language to describe feelings in your body. And then when we're all done and the dust settles, because feelings take about 90 seconds to process through our body, I go, that's the worst thing that could happen to you. The worst thing that could happen to you is that feeling, and you just did it. And if you can really internalize that the worst thing that could happen to you is a feeling, then it makes it so much easier to be brave or to put yourself in the path of discomfort to grow. And on the other side of that is everything that you want.
Yeah, we're so many times so scared to feel the feeling, like we're even more scared of the actual emotion and we push the emotion away. So it just goes more. But if we actually like take the time and let it pass through us, like you said, strong emotions take about 90 seconds. Weaker ones, like, according to my research, take a little bit longer. Like they come up and they go down, come and go and come and go. But strong ones, most definitely you sit there and you feel them and you, in all places of your body after 90 seconds, usually they're just gone. So yeah, it's like you have to be able to make that space safe so that way you could feel them.
Yeah. And so with weight loss, it's being willing to feel the urge to eat something. So you're having a stressful day and you go into the kitchen and you want to grab chocolate chips, right? And so what I do with my clients is I go, yeah, let's just pause in that moment and go, oh, I'm feeling the strong urge to eat chocolate chips. And then we remember our goals and why we were trying to be healthier and lose weight. And we are just willing to feel the discomfort of an unanswered urge. That's it. If you can just sit there and feel this like, oh, I really want to eat those, but I'm not going to, and it feels awful in my body, it will pass. And then we can move on.
Yes. Now, emotions are assigned to tell us to do something. So how do we use those emotions to fuel our goals and actually like get to where we want to go?
Yeah. Well, I think in the first step, though, we don't know how to even recognize our emotions and we don't know where they're coming from. So the check engine light keeps going on, right? But it's happening so quickly and we're so busy that I don't think people have been trained how to feel their emotions very well. So the first thing I would say is I would slow down and go, I would name it, like, what is this emotion? And what was I thinking that created that emotion? Because our thought always comes first, and it might be subconscious or very fast, or it might even sometimes be, there aren't words to it. It just might feel like, sometimes I notice that with my clients, but a thought will happen first and then the emotion will come up. So first I like to go that way where I go, well, what was that thought that created that emotion? then I ask myself, was it true or not? Because sometimes the check engine light's coming on because you're believing something that isn't true. And maybe the only thing you have to do is stop believing that. Like if you're telling yourself that you're not good enough. So you have this thought, I'm not good enough. I screwed it up again. Nobody's going to like my book, whatever it is. And you feel this emotion of yuckiness, fraud, brokenness, right? It's showing you that you're having this thought. If you can identify the thought, then you can just decide, do I think that's true? Maybe it's not true, and we just need to reprogram that thought. Whereas sometimes the emotion's telling us that we do need to go do something, or we want to connect with someone, right? You might feel lonely and it might be driving you to go seek connection with someone. But sometimes the emotion's coming from something that isn't true. But I think most people don't even get there because it's all buzzing around so fast in the background and they're not even aware of it.
Oh yeah, totally. Do you, Michael, have the same perspective on this, or like you're like, oh, that's how Sterling works? I think there's something a little different.
So one of the things we've had a lot of discussion about, like how men and women process emotion differently. And I think at the core, I agree with everything she's saying, but I would use different language to describe it if I were talking to a guy. And I think guys in general tend to seek numbness, particularly with strong emotions, because we, rather than popping from one emotion to a different emotion or trying to flee, we would rather flee into nothingness. And so lots of times, especially with guys that I work with as clients, even myself, will encounter some strong, yucky emotion. And oftentimes before I'm even aware it's there, I'm already running somewhere else. And that could be a beer after work. That could be like whatever your particular distraction of choice is. But for a guy, I think we're so desperate to escape it, we sometimes aren't even aware that emotion occurred there at all. And all of a sudden I find myself acting, and I agree with you, emotions can be incredibly powerful fuel. And I find myself doing this thing like, why am I doing this again? I'm not following the book. I'm not following what I said I was going to do. And exactly what Sterling said, learning to become aware of that emotion and saying, gosh, I can survive feeling that emotion is a very powerful thing, just as much for guys as for girls.
Totally. Now, how does your work, like, do you work together or separate? How do you like play it together?
So the way we do it is that I work with the men and Sterling works with the women. I've had, when we were in certification, we both, did coaching with opposite genders, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a language that's just a little more natural. When a guy talks to a guy, there's a language that removes one of the barriers of the language, right? And so that tends to be where we get our most efficient route. There are a number of times that have occurred where Sterling will work with the wife of a couple and I'll work with the husband of the couple. And that can be very effective. But it's just in terms of simplicity, because when you're trying to do life coaching, there's already so much other confusion going around. What's happening? What am I feeling? And so every way we can simplify it as possible can be helpful.
Yeah. Now, Sterling, do you still use any of the previous exercises? I'm just like still trying to like figure out how like it was before your training and after. Like, you said you're all into goal planning and goal setting, and you still do that, or like now that's not your focus anymore. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I do. I also do quite a bit of business coaching now, which is what I always knew I was going to get into. Michael's right. I've been an entrepreneur since a very young age. And so I would say that we would come up with strategies. So this is true on the business side, or with a weight loss client or somebody whose marriage is painful, right? We create a strategy, but then those are the tools that I was using before. And I'm always reading new books. I love books and I love learning new tools. So I feel like I have this toolbox, a big toolbox with all of these tricks in there. But understanding someone's thinking and why they are doing or not doing something is important. So let's say we create a plan and they come to me the next week and I go, how did it go? And they'll say, well, I didn't do this thing we talked about. And then we spend our time understanding their brain and why. What thought did you have? What feeling came up for you? And we dig into that. To me, is what the life coaching side is for. It's understanding that cognitive behavioral piece for why we did or didn't do something. And I think that's what unlocks all these other tools we've read, because a lot of people do go take programs and listen to podcasts and find tools, but then they feel frustrated and stuck. And it's because of something that they're thinking. And that's what we want to get curious about. And we don't even necessarily judge it. Sometimes I'll just show them, hey, this is a thought that you're having, and it's keeping you from doing this behavior. Do you want to keep that thought or not? right? We don't always even get rid of it. It's just mostly about bringing awareness to it, but that's what makes you feel so in control of your life.
Totally. Every single thing is my belief starts with self-awareness. So there you go. Yeah. Now, how has this life coaching affected your own relationship, both with yourselves and with your kids?
I think it's had a big impact.
Yeah, you
Oh,
go.
go ahead. Or maybe a little more courteous to each other. Yeah. So I think one thing I always have to mention is one of the rules that we found is you can never be the coach for your spouse if there's actually disagreement between the two of you. And you're just too thick into it there. One of the rules of life coaching is we call it never get into the pool. And so like if like I were a swimming instructor and I would be kind of coaching someone who's in the pool, as a life coach, you never want to be in the pool with them because now your emotions are entangled in the situation, all that kind of stuff, right? And so in terms of if there's a disagreement between Sterling and I, we're both in the pool already. Now with the kids is a little bit different. And, our 8-year-old just the other day had this amazing burst of maturity. They all listen to us, of course. She walks me, she says, I'm feeling this way, but I'm not really sure that why I was feeling it was real. So I'm going to choose to feel a different way. And she just walks off and does something different. And it was like this beautiful moment. You're like, wow, there are adults I know. There's me I know who can't do that most of the time. And so it's been pretty cool. It's a very powerful tool. Exactly what Sterling said. Like I've read marriage books. I've read parenting books. You read all these books, you get all these great ideas. You're like, I want that. I will do that. And you show up a week later and you're like, shoot, I didn't do that. And not knowing why, whether it's in marriage or parent, whatever, is really frustrating. And life coaching does give you the tool to step back a little bit and say, oh, maybe this is why I didn't do what I said was important.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what do you do when you are in the pool and it's your relationship that's right now and part of the mess?
I think one of the biggest things. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I just want to say, because we do have pain, right? And marriage is a refining relationship and it helps you grow in virtue. And I think what life coaching, I'll speak for me, has taught me is when my nervous system's blown out and I'm upset or angry or scared, I just am getting so much better at going, whoa, hey, love, you're not thinking very clearly right now. You need to go to your corner and repair yourself. This isn't a helpful conversation right now. And so it is that awareness piece of just noticing, whoa, I am already in a fight, flight, freeze, fawn state. And when we are in that state, our ability to reach our critical thinking brain and have well-grounded conversations is pretty minimal. And so just noticing as soon as possible when I'm freaked out and then just communicating that to him and saying, hey, listen, I'm kind of having a reaction. I'm kind of freaked out right now. I think we should go settle down. Then I think what we do is we both go life coach ourselves in the corner, get strong again, and then come back to meet each other and continue the discussion. So that feels very different to me than how we were married before.
Yeah, would you add to that, Michael?
I think only two things real quickly. Number one, that life coaching gives you the possibility to understand that just because your spouse does something that's painful doesn't mean that they meant it to be painful. And so that's just a really big, powerful. Now, that doesn't always work. Sometimes it still comes through as painful, but at least there's a possibility there as you start to disentangle your own thoughts related to your own past, why that's a weakness, why you're so tender in that point. And then even just ask the question, what thought, feeling, action combo might be going on in her mind? But the second thing I want to throw out there too is a lot of times, especially in marriage, we don't see our own stuff super clearly. And so both Sterling and I have different coaches that we go to that will sometimes be like, and this and this and this and this and this and this. And they'll just sit there like, oh, I see. When they'll ask some question, you're like, oh, I never thought about that. And so reaching out, even like, I totally agree with Sterling. We do a lot of life coaching in our own corner, but also having that option to have somebody else to look and say, oh, here's a different thing that, might be going on. Let's talk about this, can be really, really powerful too.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for anyone who doesn't have a life coach or hasn't started any sort of life coaching process and wants the life coach themselves?
The first thing I would say is keep trying until you find one that fits. There's a wide variation. Coaching is kind of like therapy. There's some out there that are amazing, but even if they're amazing, they may not be a fit for you. And so there's also some out there that aren't quite as amazing. And if it doesn't fit, keep looking. Like, don't be afraid. If you have to schedule a dozen different calls till you find the right one, look till you find the one that fits you. What would you say, honey?
I tell everybody to go listen to the Life Coach School podcast and start at episode 1. I mean, it'll change your life. There are 400 plus episodes now. And she lays out this model that we're talking about. I don't know if it's episode 1 or 2. You should still start at episode 1. But she lays it out pretty quickly. And I feel like just that one podcast for free gets you a pretty huge bump in self-awareness and understanding how you make decisions. And the other thing I like to do now, because I wasn't aware of that organization at all. I had never heard of the Life Coach School. But on their website, the Life with the in front of it, thelifecoachschool.com, they have a directory of coaches. So if I have a client who's struggling with something and isn't ready to invest in coaching, I will go look up their issue there. Maybe it's motherhood, maybe it's anorexia, maybe it's struggling with in-law relationships, right? There will be kind of a bucket of things that they're struggling with. And I will go find a coach in the Life Coach School directory and see if they have a podcast. So in addition to the Life Coach School podcast, there are all these coaches that specialize and really do give tremendous value for free on their podcast. So that's often a resource that I use if somebody, wants to do it on their own and isn't quite ready to join a program or hire a coach yet.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah. I'm a big fan of podcasts. Now, where could we connect with you and learn more about you? Maybe get coaching with you.
I am at madeforgreatness.co, and we have a life coaching membership for Catholic moms and really Catholic women, even if they're not moms, but we do a lot of mom stuff in there. And we also do business coaching for Catholic women who are running their own business, because mostly the reason we're not making more money is because of our mind drama. And we have a podcast too called Made for Greatness and a second podcast called Made for Business. So all of that information can be found on our website, madeforgreatness.co.
You can find out more about what I do. Similarly, kind of themed setup, CatholicLifeCoachForMen.com. Similar podcast, Catholic Life Coach for Men. And if you're a guy and you're curious, I have a lot of Protestants, if anyone in the faith, category at all, come check it out.
Awesome. Those links will be in the show notes for everyone. Now, final question, one that I ask everyone is, how do you describe an extraordinary relationship without using love, trust, or connection?
I think the word safety, the word desire, the word nourishment. Like I feel like we grow to be our best selves in the best relationships.
And I would add to that, there's like a sharing of experiences or a witnessing of each other, right? There's like always a component of togetherness and a witnessing. I think deep relationships are about kind of witnessing another human, another soul on the planet and what they go through.
Something like, I see you and I choose you.
Yeah.
That is an excellent question. I will think about that all day. It was a really great,
it's like, question. Oh, and I see you and I choose you and I see you for the good and the not so good and all the parts of it. And I'm still choosing you. Yes, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michael and Sterling. This was fun. And I really appreciate you taking time to be here with us today.
Thank you so
much for having us.
That's all for this episode of the Life Picks University podcast, but I have a huge favor to ask of you that will not only support the show, but will also help the people you love most. We are striving for 1 million downloads by the end of 2025, and we can't do this without your help. If you love this episode, please share it with 2 of your family and friends so they too can rewire their brains to have an extraordinary marriage. It was awesome spending time with you, and I'll see you on the next episode.